Canada to the Gulf of Mexico. Where there are Sasquatch sightings, that's where we're gonna go. With so many chilling encounters just waiting to be retold. So join us here in the spooky woods for the Duke Chat Show. Coming to you from the top of the continent and my Pearl Tower high atop Mount Badass, and also coming to you from the deepest, darkest depths of Stygian frozen Alaska. We have the return of Sunny, who hasn't been with us since episode 32 when she was surrounded by hunting Sasquatch. And this time she's going to be telling us some stories from up in Alaska. And yeah, there's Bigfoot in Alaska. So we're going to be hearing some Bigfoot in Alaska stories. And so welcome back to the show, Sonny.
Thank you for having me back.
Very welcome. I'm very grateful that you finally managed to make it back again before episode 100. That's kind of cool. And I know you've got like lots of experiences up there in Alaska. And the most interesting one to me that we should start out with is begin at the beginning, right? When you were a little girl, your parents, for some unknown reason, wanted to go move to Nahanni Valley. Yeah, the Valley of the Headless Men. This is a great idea. Let's go homestead Nahanni Valley. Oh, God, have you ever looked at a travel brochure? Well, apparently your parents hadn't. And luckily for you, the canoe couldn't be manufactured in time, which saved you from going there and living there. So what ended up happening at that point? Did the folks actually stay up somewhere else in Alaska, or was the whole thing just kind of nixed?
Oh, no. We were in Canada in the Canadian Rocky Mountains.
Okay.
Yeah, and then after both served in the Vietnam War, so they wanted to be completely away from people. So we'd been living in a teepee up until then out up in the Canadian Rocky Mountains. And I need to call my dad and ask him why. But they thought it was beautiful. I know that they thought it was gorgeous and beautiful and it was pristine, and they just...
Oh, God. So, like, somebody showed them a picture in the Nahanni Falls or something, and they went, oh, that looks awesome. Let's move it. Oh, my God.
Yeah, great. People aren't there, so, the hunting will be great. And, they had a guy start building a canoe because you're going to canoe with 3 children, by the way, all under the ages of 4. Wait, no, that would have been 3, 4, and 5. But, yeah. Canoe down river to get there, but the canoe the guy kept having to push the date back, and thank God, because by the time he did get it finished, they had just turned it into a national park, so you couldn't homestead there anymore.
Yay!
It took a couple extra months, and thank God, because I probably would not be here. And when I found out that I found this out when I went back, and I'm like, "You're going to Nahanni? Really, Dad? Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's beautiful there." I'm like, "You even know?" And he's like, he still doesn't. Yeah, he just kind of rolls his eyes and goes, "Well, yeah." I think he's still
just because dozens of people ended up with no heads and their corpses were found there later, that's no big deal.
I don't think he knows that's part of the story of that area. He didn't.
And what's the moral of this story? Do proper research before you move.
Yeah, I agree. I was like shocked when I found him. Like, what? And then it said Nahanni Valley. And I whipped around on my chair. I'm like, what did you just say, Dad? And he goes,
God.
yeah, we should go to the Nahanni Valley. And my mom was like, yeah, we'll get the canoe built. And I'm like, wait, what? But then again, we didn't have computers and stuff back then and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And, you know,
We were
just
living off it.
to catch up people that aren't completely aware of this whole thing, Nahanni Valley is the Valley of the Headless Man. A lot of prospectors would go up there and then they wouldn't hear from them again, and they'd go looking for them and find their headless corpses. And that's why it got the name the Headless Valley. And the local natives won't live anywhere near it. They have actually, according to archaeologists, moved their settlement several times further away from it. And they say it's because there's bad things that live there that will kill you and like tear your head off. And one of them is the Naha, and the other one's the Nahanni. And the one of them are supposed to be like giant cavemen with weird armor and strange weapons or something, and the other one are like type 4 Bigfoot or something that rip your head off. Yeah. But either way, you don't want to be up there. There's probably other terrible things there. Now, you had another story about that valley with somebody that you knew. Now, and see, this is really interesting because it's like really hard to get a copter pilot to take you anywhere in that valley. And I think you know where I'm going to this, so go ahead and pick it up from there.
I have a friend, she's a geologist, and she wanted to go to Nahanni Valley to check out the geothermal pools and stuff like that. And yeah, well, you can take helicopter flights and you can float down the rivers and do all sorts of stuff, but people really don't want to do that. But you're not supposed to. When you take a helicopter tour, you're not really supposed to touch down on any of the areas.
Yeah. And really, you're not even allowed to like randomly hike around in that place or anything. People have tried it, and they're given the you can't do that, we don't allow it speech.
Yep. They only allow certain areas where you can go. So,
yep.
Just a second, I'm looking. Anyways, she paid him several extra $1,000s for him to set him down by a geothermal pools, and to, you know, he refused to wait. He absolutely refused. He's like, I'll take your money, I'll set you down, I'll be back. And she goes, a half hour. So he's like, okay. He goes, if you're not back here, I will not wait for you. I mean, it's that bad that he's like, he will not wait. So she said the helicopter took off, and, you know, because they wanted to skinny dip and do some other interesting looking for gold and stuff. And they found, you know, flecks of gold and other, you know, evidence of gold. Anyways, it was not more than a few minutes with them being there, and they started hearing screams, horrifying screams from a distance, and guttural growls that are, you know, it was terrifying to them. They're like, they didn't wander off like they were going to. They stayed pretty much where they landed in that tiny little area. It was like 15 minutes, if that. They saw the helicopter was coming back, and they were like waiting, you know, frantically for him to come down and touch down. And he did, and they all got on. And she was like, oh my God, we're gonna die. And they asked, why'd you come back so soon? I mean, they were grateful, but they wanted to know why. And he said he had seen something and he had a bad feeling about it. So he came back and picked him up. And they were asking him for more information, pressing him. But he was like, nope, I'm just not supposed to. I don't ever stay. You don't land. And he just he wouldn't say anything more for information, but he just refused. And then he goes, this is why I don't take visitors off the beaten path.
Yeah. So between the whatever it was screaming and moving rapidly toward them and his reaction, you can kind of guess what might be going on there. So the other thing is that, you know, you've you've got lots of encounter stories from, well, you've seen a few of them yourself, but you've got lots of encounter stories from folks up there. And one of the things that comes to my mind is some of the more dangerous subvarieties live up there in Alaska. Do you get a lot of people go missing up there?
We have our own little Bermuda Triangle. It's actually called the Alaskan Triangle. It's by far bigger than the Bermuda Triangle is. It goes from Yakutat to like Anchorage all the way up to Nome in that triangle. And I mean, yes, a lot of people go missing because they're stupid and Mother Nature is not forgiving of anything. However, Mother Nature also contains all sorts of other things that aren't so nice, not just bears and moose and other things that want to kill you up here. But I know that there's a mountain that hikers would go up, and very few would ever come back down. And this person I know used to tell them, "Don't go up there," and sure enough, they wouldn't listen, and they'd go hiking up to the top of the mountain, and they're never seen again. That's several times a year that happens. So there's no bodies ever found. So,
has anybody ever made it up there and made it back again?
I'm sure there has to be, but I would not bet my life on that. So
you'd think after enough people disappeared in that one area, they would give up on going up there.
Yeah. You'd think, but people, they don't want to believe that anything other than the normal things running around up there. Well, that's not true because most of us up here know that there are things because we've seen something or somebody that we've known has seen something. Somebody has, it's common enough that it's a common knowledge, but more of a taboo subject. Like over at Mount Iliamna. There's Mount Iliamna monster and stuff like that. Those are like giants and trolls over there. I know it sounds crazy, but
no, actually, that's the impression I've gotten from what I've heard of the area too. That they're probably mountain giants or mountain trolls, same thing, and that they live in that valley on the opposite side of the mountain range. And the natives that live on the other side of the lake not only won't go over there, they'll get like positively homicidal if you say you're going to go over there because they don't want these things to come back and attack their village.
Mm-hmm. Well, they'll usually just say, you don't want to go over there, but people will be like, and you go over there and people go missing. And we have the Lake Iliamna, an aquatic
lake monster. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's been seen for, good Lord, since I can't even remember the date, but hundreds of years. They think it's like huh?
Go ahead.
They think that it's a dinosaur, basically, like a what's the name of that dinosaur?
Plesiosaur or something.
Thank you.
That's their favorite theory for most of those lake monsters.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that most of those lakes, if you're talking about Loch Ness, and you got Nessie, and over in Scandinavia, there's Stussy, and then you've got the Ogopogo, and you've got all the ones across Canada and everything. And it's interesting that mostly the lakes that have these reports, the lake monsters, are always the ones that are like pretty far north. You don't really get this very much in the southern lakes. It's the ones that are pretty far north that seem to, get the reports of these big lake monster things. And it always made me kind of go, what's the deal with this? Because it's counterintuitive. You'd expect that big warm lakes in the south would have giant lake monsters, not big cold lakes in the north.
Yeah, and also if you take a look at the ones that do, the lakes run very, very deep. They're not shallow lakes. They're very deep.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's the case for most of them too. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But we're more interested in the Bigfoot thing here. So what other things have you heard about the trolls on the other side of the mountains there? Have you heard anything else about them?
Not really from what I can say. I mean, I know just not to go there. I know the general area in which they live because you're told to stay the hell out of it.
Right. I know that the local tribe there are pretty, or the natives that live near the lake are pretty serious about that too.
Yeah.
About don't go there, leave them alone.
I'm not going there, so not going to do it.
Have you heard? Is there stories of anybody that's actually done that?
I can't remember.
Okay.
I'm sorry. My brain is, I know it probably is, but my brain isn't recalling right now. It's just blank.
Well, let's talk about some of the other scary cryptids up there. What kind of good Bigfoot scary stories have you got for us?
Well, there's an old man I know. He moved to Alaska in 1943. He was like 18 or 17 or something like that. He wanted to mine and make his stamp in gold. And let me see. I think he moved to Chattanooga first, and then down to Cook Inlet area. And he mined for a long time down in Yetna. And he'd always hear the screams, and none of the local people would talk about it, and at all, until he said he saw some pretty scary things over the years, but then he never told people either. Because it's kind of like you don't want to sound crazy.
Yeah.
Plus, you don't know who's going to come steal your gold, jump your gold claim and stuff like that. But
well, I don't know. If I wanted to keep people away from my claim, I'd be selling the monster story right and left. Oh yeah, the place is crawling with monsters. I wouldn't go anywhere near there if I was armed to the teeth. Okay, boy.
Well, it was bad enough that him and his friends split up. He didn't want to live in the area because he'd come up with a couple, like 2 friends. I can't remember, 2 or 3 friends. But anyways, they split up, and he journeyed up here to the Matanuska Valley area on the Willow side. And good Lord, we used to sit and have coffee and talk for hours. And he's seen like all sorts of things. He called it the wild man a lot. And he said over the decades, like they'd mess with his gold. I forgot what it's called. It's like a slaw. It moves the water anyways. But they'd mess it up and stuff like that. And but over the times, he started learning the different screams. He'd start seeing them, and they were not friendly. In the Matanuska Willow area, they are not friendly at all. We're talking about up on oh geez.
Oh God, is that where that one prospector got chased out of that valley by like a herd of them, and came back with the ore and dropped it off to his buddies and said, "Oh yeah, I found this place where there's all this great gold ore, and there's like monsters in that valley. And they chased me out of it. I barely got back to my canoe. You can go there if you want. Here's a chunk of ore. I'm leaving for San Francisco as soon as I can get to the coast."
That wasn't him, but it sounds pretty much like the area.
Yeah, if I remember right, that was in that area where that happened to him too. That was back in the old gold rush days.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, he was the one that was telling me all about different stick structures before I even knew about them. And different screams, different things mean different things. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, my speech isn't the greatest because for y'all out there that don't know, I have a TBI that affects my speech.
Yeah, and you got hit by a car not too long, a few days ago, so that didn't help either.
That didn't help me, yeah. But anyways, he told me there was one time when he was coming home. He'd been out because he had his tiny little cabin that he built. He still lives in. Well, I haven't seen him for like a year, but he had to not stay at the cabin because he'd go out to where he was prospecting, stay out there for a week or 2, then come back. Go into get supplies, come back out. But he said there was one time when he'd come back to the cabin and all of his stuff had actually been gone through. Not like a bear, because bears just smash and eat.
Yeah.
But literally things were opened, and he barrels. He had barrels of salted pork and salted meats and stuff like that, and flour and sugar, because it was back in the day. And it was like literally opened up, not smashed, like strewn around, but like a human, but not a human. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most of it was eaten or taken. I mean, things were messed up, but as he was saying, he goes, it ain't no human did that. I know it was one of those damn Sasquatch keep don't leave me the hell alone. That's what he was saying.
Friggin' Sam Squatches.
Sam Squanch. Oh, I wish I would have said that to him. He would have laughed his butt off. He had it wasn't a love-hate, it was a tolerance-hatred.
Yeah.
He goes, some of them he disliked the young Squatches.
Well, those are the ones that generally cause all the trouble, so I could see why.
He did not like the younger ones because they were more aggressive. They would just destroy shit. Sorry, in person, but they would just like destroy everything. And because he's, didn't like having to rebuild everything.
Yeah. Yeah, but having to rebuild stuff makes you want to sling lead in the direction of whatever breaks it.
Yeah, which he did a couple times, and then he realized that's probably not the greatest idea. Now, he has said that he has killed 2 in his lifetime. But he said that the one that they had killed, it was him and his friends with them when they were down in Cook Inlet area, that was part of the reason why he decided to leave. They kept coming in, being camp robbers, coming into his camp and not just robbing what they had, but destroying everything too. And for some reason, they would destroy any fur that they had trapped and got and stuff like that. So coats, anything that was fur, they would just rip it up for some reason. And up here, you're gonna die if you don't have that stuff in the winter.
A guest from way up north near the Arctic Circle in the ALASKA.
Lord Duke, how are you?
Lord Hackenbrook, how are you? What's the weather like up there? I heard you were getting a little warm snap and it was actually above 0.
Yeah, it got all the way to 8 degrees. So it felt like I should have put the shorts on when I got out of the clinic today.
Woohoo. Nice temps all the way up to 8 degrees. Yeah, you can get a suntan now. You look like you got some sunburn from it, so you're doing good.
Yeah.
So we're having you back to give us a little updates about some of the stuff that's been happening over the course of your last year, and you got to go out and do a little actually dedicated to let's look around for Bigfoot sort of expedition earlier in the year. And then one of your own spots, you had a weird occurrence happen. So let us know what happened then.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Well, so I'll start back a little bit. The place that we went to in episode 89 that you recorded, we went back out there again, and the river was up at a level that you can't get across to where we were at. In fact, that's where it usually is. When we got out there the first time, it was a lot lower, and we were able to get into some areas that you can't cross, So we found some really old tracks, but nothing really exciting, and nothing much happened there. So that was interesting, but not so much, I guess.
Oh, it was worth it. You went back, took another look around, see if there's still hanging around the activity. And they probably
just
weren't.
Vague. The weird thing that you mentioned, went out to my gold mining claim, and I still don't know what to make of this. This still just kind of blows my mind. But I had a friend out there. He was working. We dug holes in on my claim, and we were running some of the material. They were test holes. Okay, so we're running the material through his sluice. And earlier in the day, I had let out one of these whistles, for the dog. I brought my dog with me, and and he had his dog, and anyway, so he's just, oh gosh, maybe you got to understand this terrain. We're up in there where there's really high mountain sides, and it's a narrow enclosure, so it comes down like this, and it's a pretty narrow spot. Excuse me. And so there's not a lot of room in there, and it's the fall. The foliage is all gone, and I've gone over the little creek and up to one of the piles nearby that we dug with a little excavator and piled the dirt up along these trails that we made with the excavator, and so I'm loading dirt and rocks into these 5-gallon buckets and just walking them. And so you can imagine these are 60 pounds each, and I'm not walking very far. I can see my buddy from where I'm at running the sluice. And so I hear loud whistle, just like the one I did for the dogs. You put your finger in your mouth and you do one sharp blast. And I thought, oh, maybe he found something. Maybe found some gold in there, and or else he wants to tell me something. I'm not sure. But I finished filling up the bucket, and I can see him. He's maybe 50, 60 feet. Maybe a little bit further. So I grabbed these buckets and I tootled down there, and I set him down. He's going to load him into the sluice, and I said, what did you want? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, what, you whistled at me. Were you wanting to show me something or what? He said, I didn't whistle at you. I said, come on, man. He goes, I don't even know how to whistle. He says, I can't whistle. I said, you didn't whistle for me. He says, no, this guy doesn't, believe in, he has no opinion about Bigfoot one way or the other. He doesn't really care, or anything like that.
Right.
And I said, now I'm starting to get a little bit alarmed. I said, I thought maybe you were calling for the dogs, or you wanted to show me something in the gold. He goes, no, I didn't whistle for you. So I'm going, okay, this is weird, because I heard a loud whistle between me and him. I can see him. I can see the mountain over here, less than 100 yards, and there's one. I'm up against the other one, and all the foliage is off, the ground. So
right.
there's
no ground cover. There's nowhere for anything to hide.
There's no ground cover. But it was loud. It wasn't,
right.
It wasn't a mistake.
Well, you guys keeping in mind that you guys are running noisy equipment. It had to be really loud for you to hear it.
Well, it was loud in my ears, and he didn't hear it at all.
Okay.
He didn't hear it. He didn't know what I was talking about. I said, you didn't hear a whistle? He goes, no. Now, granted, he's running a small water pump and, what have you, and, maybe, I suppose I could have drowned it out. But it sounded like it was practically next to me.
Right.
I wouldn't have had to make an effort. If I was going to throw a rock where I thought I heard the noise, I wouldn't have had to make an effort to throw it. And I got to thinking about it, and I was trying to describe it. And I said, it was just like when I whistled for the dogs. And I thought, it was just like when I whistled for the dogs.
Exactly like when you whistled for the dogs.
It was just like when I whistled for the dogs. Now, that just creeped me out. I'm sorry, because it just, it sounded almost as close as inside this little hotel room that I'm in, for work. So it wasn't, there was no mistaking. I didn't hear a bird, or it was a whistle just like I made. And I thought, well, I've heard that, Bigfoot, what have you, can mimic and will mimic, but I didn't, unless it was like a throwing of the voice kind of a thing, or something that I can't see or whatever. There was nowhere for something big to hide, which I got to talking to one of my young native friends here, and he gets on the internet. He's
Right.
like, and I'm like, what are you looking for? He goes, well, just give me a second, And he comes up and he goes, it says here, little people whistle.
Urchin, right?
No, that I'm not liking at all. And then he calls his mom, who's he's a city native, and if anybody gets offended at what I'm saying, you don't live up here, because that's what he would call himself, and his mom's not, and she's like, yeah, that sounds like little people. And it's like, no, I don't want little people on my mind. It's just not what I'm, unless of course they can tell me where the gold is,
Yeah.
So,
Or unless they're upset that you're going to take their gold.
well, I don't know that they got much use for it, but
They're not mining it.
yeah. Yeah, well, I'm not saying it's little people. I'm not saying it's Bigfoot. All I'm saying is I heard a really loud whistle, and my buddy wasn't putting me on. I could feel that,
And rightfully, you shouldn't have had any kind of noise there, because everything around you is pretty much out in the open. There was no place for anything to be hiding.
No, it just wasn't. There just wasn't. It just, and if it come from the direction that it sounded like it clearly came from, granted, it could have been behind me and maybe echoed off of the mountain, because the mountains, like I said, who knows?
Yeah.
All I know is that was creepy, and
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to digging up some, yellow metal out of there. So I'm hoping I don't have any kind of problems, and I know that's going to sound strange to if anybody. My family already thinks I'm crazy, so I can.
Crazy old gold miner out there seeing Bigfoot and getting video of their tracks.
Yeah, they love me anyway. So. That's his papa. It's all good. But yeah, so that was a little unsettling when I got to thinking about it afterwards.
Yeah. And again, you're not just like right down the block from your house or something. You're kind of out in the middle of frickin' nowhere again when this is going on.
Yeah, it's about 3 hours down a mining road and then up in the hill a little bit, and
right.
So yeah, we're. I mean, there's a lot of miners around there. There's a lot of activity, but it's not the city, that's for sure. It's it's a good ways from where I'm at, number of hours, from where I live. But yeah, that was weird. That was weird. The other thing was a while back, and I'll be a little vague about like locations and stuff like that, just a little, because it wasn't my spot, not my property. And
right. And I've talked to the owner, and he wants us to be a little bit vague about exactly where it is. So we'll ballpark it within 100 or so miles, maybe.
Yeah.
Or less. Or maybe more.
You go too far south, and you're going to be in the ocean. Okay.
Yeah. So it's somewhere in this general area of this one peninsula. And that's about all we're going to tell you.
Yeah.
But before you go any further, I want to just jump in here and say,
sure.
I'm trying to get the other person that was involved in this. I haven't been able to reach him recently here and get him on the show too, to talk about his part in the whole thing. But also has been on the show previously, famed wildlife and Bigfoot artist RobRoy Menzies. So this is like combined World Bigfoot Radio Expedition up here. We had both of you guys out on this.
Yeah, we went out to this one gentleman's property, and he'd been, he'd had a little activity, and he was really strongly, don't talk about this. And I was like, well, can I talk about what happened? What my experience was? I'm not going to say where it was. And it was like, he kind of begrudgingly allowed for that. So
yeah, we'll narrow it down to Alaska, somewhere on the coast.
Yeah. But If anybody knows where Les Stroud had his Alaska encounter, they'll know that I can say this, it's within 50 to 100 miles radius of that spot. Which was kind of interesting. So if there's any crew that dropped him off and stuff like that, you can narrow it down within 50 to 100 miles. But yeah, so
it's not ridiculously far from the abandoned Port Chatham either.
No, not ridiculously. But it's all over up here. It really is. And
Yeah.
I have friends out in the villages that send me pictures or tell me about different things. So in fact, one of that little you got a thumbnail on one of your episodes with a little fish drying hut that was shared with me as a little person's fish drying hut, and it's pretty odd. It's a pretty odd picture. But anyway.
What's the backstory on that? Do you know the person that got it?
No, not really. It's way up north, way up past.
Yeah, it looked like tundra. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got like about 5 different geographical zones and climates up in Alaska. Alaska's about 2.5 times the size of Texas. We tease Texans that if they get too uppity, we'll divide Alaska in half and they'll be the 3rd largest state. So, but anyway, so I live in South Central. You get over the Alaska Range Mountains and you get into the interior where I am right now. I'm in Fairbanks right now where it's really cold. And then you get further out of the interior and you start getting up more towards the Brooks Range and all that area. And you go over those mountains, you're on the North Slope. So it's up more in that area. And, they
Way the hell up there.
Yeah, they get footprints and you don't go to a village that they don't know about Bigfoot and little people. I mean, they just, it's just common, knowledge. And since I work at different times in different villages, I ask, and I haven't been in one that it was like, they live up that way, So,
yeah, that's what I've heard, and I know more people up in Alaska than just you, and
yeah,
they all tell me the same thing. Oh yeah, if you go to the outlying areas, they know exactly where the Sasquatch are. Oh, they're over this way.
Yeah. But they really talk even more about the little people.
Yeah, well, they're more scared of the little people, I think.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So anyway, we go out to this one place this one summer. Okay. And he's had rocks thrown onto his roof, and he built a beautiful cabin, on the water. It's just really nice. Rocks on the roof and, other occurrences. And, if Rob comes on, he'll tell you about how he got the bejesus scared out of him by can't remember if it was it was a really loud wood knock, just a stone's throw, from one point where he was standing over to somewhere else. Got that whole feeling of, I need to get to the cabin, and so we get there and there's nobody out there. You don't walk to a place like this. You take a boat,
for a plane
for a couple hours,
yeah,
to get there. And if there's anybody else in the area, it because you hear them coming from miles away, but he's going to come in on a plane or a boat or something like that. And as far as I know, all the old Japanese soldiers, from World War II, they're getting a little ripe by now. They hide.
Probably not them. Yeah, we can pretty much discount that.
Yeah. So anyway, so we're out there, and the first night. Okay, so he's got 3 of us, and then there's 3 young guys that kind of hired to put up drywall and stuff like that. And when when they finish, work for the day, their deal is they get to go out in the boat and go fishing. But we were kind of done with all that, and everybody was in the cabin, and been a long day, and I'm 57, so I'm not thrilled about the idea that I got to get into a top bunk, but I'm kind of except for these other guys that are in a different room, I'm nominated for the top bunk. So I get up into this top bunk, and I hear they're throwing rocks at the skiff because you can't get the boat in, to the shore. You got to take a little skiff in. They're throwing rocks at the skiff, and I think, yeah, okay. Nah, it's going to be over. If I climb down out of this thing, it's going to be over by the time I get out there. I'm not. And everybody's in the cabin. I know everybody's in the cabin. Well, he's got this Zoom sound activated recording device that is mounted to a tree about 50, 75 yards, maybe a little further from the water. And number of things get picked up on this recorder. But this incident, you listen to it and you can hear large rocks going skaploosh clunk, skaploosh clunk, hitting the stones underneath the water. So the Zoom has to activate by the first sound it hears, and then it'll record for so long until either the activity stops or a certain amount of time, I think, after the activity stops. And so you hear the spelunking, of the rocks on this recorder, and they're not pebbles, they're making a pretty good.
Oh yeah, if you can hear them hit the bottom and go thunk into the bottom, they're not like little pebbles.
And it's being picked up by a recorder that's 75 yards from the water, on a tree in the woods.
Right.
Okay. So that's one thing. That was the first thing. And I'm trying to think of these events in kind of chronological order. And I don't remember if the crapper event or the whoop happened next. But I do remember we got to walking around, and almost anywhere you go, if you're getting out into the woods out here, in this general area, you start climbing almost whenever you're either climbing uphill or you're climbing downhill, and if you got a flat spot, you build on it, and the rest of it,
It's just like here, we don't even have enough flat spots to do any farming.
Yeah. So this, so I think this event came next, but and it was a number of things kind of tied together, and I kind of had to thread them together after they were all known. But the first thing that happened was Rob's dog. So the way you build to keep bears out and stuff like that is you build high, and these stairs are the porch is probably 10, 12 feet above the ground, I'm thinking, and the stairs are like a drawbridge. So when you leave, you use a winch and you hoist the stairs back up. So there's nothing, but the post that the thing is on. And so the dog been running up and down those stairs, since we got there, and no problem. And he's down at the bottom of the stairs, and he's looking at me, and I'm kind of whining, and I'm like, Rob's dog's name's Banjo, and I'm like, come on, Banjo, come on. And he won't come up the stairs, and he keeps glancing over that other direction towards what I find out later is the hole in the ground with a toilet seat set on a box over it.
Yeah, the temporary outhouse.
Uh-huh. And I didn't know this, but I just thought, well, that's weird. He just doesn't want to come up. But he was coming up and down all the time, It was okay, well, whatever, dog doesn't want to come up. A little bit later, we hear the other fella, the owner, go, guys, because he's, this little temporary outhouse, like you put it, is, it's only about, 50, 100 feet from the cabin. You don't want to go walking too far in the middle of the night,
Right. Yeah. Not convenient.
You dig a hole, you dig a hole, you cover it up when you're done with it. But so there's maybe just a little bit of light foliage to give you some privacy, but you're not far, so you can hear them. Guys, something just growled at me, and I know these things are real. I'm totally on board. So, but I'm thinking you're a little eager.
Who's getting growled at?
The owner.
Oh, okay.
Sitting on the crapper. He said something growled at me, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, And my internal feeling was you're a little eager. You're pretty good. So, that was that. Remember, several incidents tied together. So, about an hour later, a little less, Rob has to use the same facilities, and he gets up. He's done his business, and most of us are carrying a weapon, at least a sidearm or something like that. There's bears and critters out there, and when you're trying to be delicate, but when your drawers are down, sometimes if your gun is strapped to your belt, it'll fall off if you're not careful. And his gun fell down. And he reaches down to pick it up, and he sees this track within, drop your phone, drop your gun distance of the crapper. And he fires up his phone, starts recording, and you can hear him talking and saying, well, I guess that could be one of us. And he told me, he says, I'm trying to be real logical and kind of, be real objective and impartial and he says, but inside I'm thinking, crap, that's a Bigfoot track. but on the recording, he's like, well, it looks a little bigger, and he's trying to stomp down next to, he says, no, that's not exactly the shape. But inside, he's going, that's a big, and it's right there. I mean, it's right there in some,
Yeah, I haven't seen the video or anything, but I'm presuming that you guys had dug the ground up to make a hole there to put the temporary outhouse over. So there's like freshly moved dirt right there for a track.
Yeah, it's fairly fresh. I think he had dug it up on a previous trip, but
right.
So it's
but
not
with their weight. That's still enough. That's like they're going to leave a nice track there.
And it was right there facing uphill.
Mm-hmm.
And so he comes back, and then they decide they got some plaster of Paris. They're going to cast it,
Nice.
And so it doesn't, to me, it doesn't look like it's going to make much of a cast, but I've since learned there's a whole lot more detail that gets in that dirt than you can just see with your eye. And you put some good hydrocal or plaster of Paris down, it's amazing what comes up. The fingerprints, dermal ridges, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to see all the detail that came out of that thing. It was incredible.
The prettiest, I guess, but hopefully it'll come out.
Go for it.
Okay.
I'm just videotaping, so you just this is it. First time picking it up.
Good released.
Gonna be heavy.
Perfect. We can wash that with the boat, on the boat.
Oh man, look at that. That is definitely a foot.
Yeah. What the fuck did we do? Oh, sorry. Boop.
Beep.
What the hell is this?
Wash down the
Yeah.
boat, spray it down.
I'm really gonna be curious to see
Yeah,
how
let's
this
go see.
spider.
We got a track picture from here in Montana that interestingly was from Coloma the year before I went there the first time, which is why I went there. One of my friends who's not a Bigfooter, is just a photographer, was walking around there after a rainstorm and found a whole line of tracks and got a couple really good pictures. And one of them, you can actually see the dermal ridges on the foot because it had just stepped in the mud and it left. You could see it on the damn picture because the photography was so good. But other than that, yeah, you need casting to bring that out most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect, I was there when they cast it, and I didn't expect it to amount to much, but it's actually really good. And so when I asked the other guy, I said, what direction did you get growled at from? And he says, well, downhill. And, downhill, there's a big tree fall over, big root ball. And so it makes you wonder, was there something between the root ball and the water and something uphill growled to kind of distract and get the attention away?
Mm-hmm.
Because the track was coming from the water uphill. This just
You never know, but they do that kind of misdirection stuff, so it's totally within the realms of possibility.
Well, it's just speculation, but you almost get the feeling of, once something got free to move uphill, it went there. You almost feel like you're getting flipped off just a little bit, like there.
They've done that with us a few times. They've left obvious tracks, like the last trip we were up there in the Scotthack, and we went downstream about 10 miles and checked out some stuff and came back, and it's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's an obvious fresh track right next to Mike's tent. They were there in the middle of the damn day checking out the camp.
Well, they're supposed to, and apparently are, so good at hiding their tracks that when you got one that's
that obvious, it's like they left it there for you to find.
Yeah, 2.5, 3 feet from the crapper you're sitting on.
Yeah, this was the same thing. This was right next to his tent. I mean, literally right next to his tent.
Yeah, in softer dirt, and it's like, yeah, buddy. By the way.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I had that one leave that 19-inch track right in front of my tent that one time too, and it was like there was no other place you could have left a track that I would have noticed it. It was the only place with the ground scraped clean where there was dirt that you could leave a track and a stupid human would notice it. And his big toe was about 2 inches from the zipper on my tent, 19-inch track. No, that wasn't obvious at all. Oh,
Yeah.
God.
well, and so now afterwards, I'm kind of like going, it was only a few moments before he hollered out, guys, something just growled at me. That banjo was at the bottom of the stairs, just kind of lightly whining, looking at me, looking in that direction, and not coming up those stairs. So the dog is acting weird and looking in the direction of what later was something growled at me. And then a little while after that, we find a fresh, beautifully castable, I think it was maybe about 16 inches, but it was kind of wide and pudgy and, track.
Footprint. Yeah, I can't remember what Rob said exactly, if it was 16 or 17 inches, but I remember it was in that range. I'm leaning towards 17, but we'll have to have him tell us.
And it was a good 8 inches wide. So all those three things happened in sequence and within about an hour's time, And so that was that was pretty significant. The other things, we walked around on the hills. We found impressions and tracks and and things like that in the hills. But so. The audio recorder. So it was either around the time of the rocks throwing, or I think it was around the time of this growl and this track. Listen to this thing, and it's got, it's like a game cam, right? It gets activated, and sometimes
it records for a while. And,
sometimes you miss the very, very beginning of what activated it because something had to happen for it to turn on. And
right.
And then you have these clips at different times. And so listening to this one, and I'm thinking, what the heck is that? It's really low pitched, deep. I'm thinking, is that a heartbeat? I mean, it sounds weird. It's deep and it's thump, 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 And I listened to it, a number of times, and then it hit me. Something big and heavy ran past
the recorder.
I don't know how close, but do you realize how heavy you got to be for just the thud of your foot fells to activate? It wasn't rust. It wasn't tree branch. It wasn't branches snapping.
Just the impact of the weight on the ground was making that much noise.
I thought it was a heartbeat, like somebody was standing next to it. That's how low and quiet it was. And it hit me. Something ran past. It sounded just like something running past it, and that I'm kind of getting just a slight goosebumps right now just talking about it, because when it hit me that's what it was. It really sounded like something heavy running past it. It was so heavy that it was just this very almost imperceptible, but you could definitely hear it on there. Low pitched thud, that just kind of shook. It's almost like when we have an earthquake up here, and you can kind of almost hear the rustling, of the
right.
It's hard to describe if you haven't heard it, but
dude, I had one run behind me one time when I was in the woods, and he waited until I turned around, and then apparently he was trying to duck from one hiding spot to another and get past me without me seeing him. And he had to be within 20 feet behind me. And I heard like thud, 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 and that was it. And it sounded like a freaking horse was going behind me. You could feel the ground shake, and I never saw him.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was pretty significant on the recorder. Then there was another time that it was just Rob and I walking, and the owner was in the house, in the cabin. I kind of hate to call it a cabin. It's like a small It's not. It's like a house, but it's a cabin.
Yeah.
And
Just for a little backstory before you continue on here, the owner initially had contacted me before you guys even went up there, and I had already talked to him about it. And he is not like on the boat with Bigfoot or thinking they're real or anything. As a matter of fact, he wanted it to be anything but Sasquatch on his property, which would be like another annoyance that he didn't want to have to put up with, besides marauding bears, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But he was open-minded enough to look into it and to pay attention to what was going on. And he made audio recordings, and he's had some other folks up there taking a look around the property and whatnot. And we're absolutely convinced that there's Sasquatch there. In fact, we'd be surprised if there weren't, as there aren't any other cabins or anything around this place. He is really out in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, and I don't think it should matter, but it does to some people. It doesn't matter to me. Okay, I don't care if you spend most of your time barefoot and you live in in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, or if you're the highest paid professional. But some people care about that, and I'll just say this about this guy. The guy's a highly paid professional. That he's not looking for attention. This is why it's so vague. He's not looking for attention. He's not looking for money. He's
already got plenty of money. He's not worried about that.
Yeah. It takes money to have that kind of boat to get out there and several hours away and haul all that stuff up and build.
And buy the property and make the small house on stilts that you want just for a cabin that you're only going to use a few times a year. Yeah, this is not anybody that's looking for attention or needs to try and fake anybody about Sasquatch.
Yeah, you go out and build a place in the middle of nowhere like that because you like being out there by yourself without a lot of attention. You're not looking.
And you don't want things that throw rocks at your boat and slap the side of your cabin.
No. So Rob and I are walking up the trail. We're going uphill again. You're either going uphill or downhill or side hill. We hear a noise, and I won't say that either of our minds identified it immediately. Well, let's put it this way. When these things happen, anybody talks to me, they would know. I have no problem saying, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, a lot of these other weird things that go on are real. They would think of me as, I got a Bigfoot crossing sign on the back of my four-wheeler. They would think of me as, really likes,
That's so awesome. I want one.
Yeah. And, but when these things happen, you don't go there right away in your head. Yeah. It kind of surprises me, to be honest with you, because really, except for something that happened almost 20 years ago that I kind of think was a prelude, but it was kind of weak, but it was a prelude. Anyway, I really just started, having any kind of experience with this stuff just a little more than, but I think it was 2 years now. I think it was the fall of 2018 when we had all those cracks. Yeah. So, but I've not had any, I figure it's just no way thousands of people are lying from right. All, it's just ridiculous.
Well, and you ran into the evidence yourself, which, we've been showing here some off and on from the previous episode while we've been talking. And when you could spend an entire day walking around filming tracks and there's so many tracks you get bored with filming them and you start questioning, why am I even continuing to do this? Because there's hundreds of them. There's plenty of evidence that's real.
Yeah. It's that was crazy because it was okay, this isn't any better than the other couple dozen I just took, so I'm not gonna film that one.
But especially thanks for filming that one where there was the double tree snap right next to each other with the giant tracks right underneath it. Thank you for filming that. Yeah, that big.
2 trees that big around, over 6 foot high, snap
in opposite directions.
two big opposite directions.
Yeah.
Yeah, like something.
And you could see where it planted its feet beneath the trees when it snapped both of them. You can see both tracks clearly.
See it? It's all flat.
Yeah, and I can see the toes.
And the toes.
Hard to see in the video.
Right, I know it's hard. And then you got that one over there. I don't want to disturb anything, but you got this where you can see the toes. See the toes?
Mm-hmm.
Right there's the toes.
Hold on, let me
the
get
hill
these
comes
breaks.
to here.
Look
See
at
the hill mark?
Hold on.
Right here. Watch.
Look at those breaks.
See, are you? Yeah, and you can see where he just grabbed it. Look, he stood here. That's where his footprints are. Stood from there to here and said, pow, and broke those off. Look at all the trees around you. That's a big tree.
Yeah.
So we're close to the area. I know we are.
You know what? I need to go back and get the tape measure.
Okay. But you see? They grabbed that mother and just pow. And you can kind of see where he stood too, right here, and disturbed the ground with the sand right here. And then that footprint, you can see it. Look at that one, where he stood right here and flattened the earth. So, and look right here, look at this. See this? Look right here, that trail, all the way through there. What would break that right there and lean it over? See it?
Got another one.
There you go. Then you're looking at these, look. Just broke. And nothing else is, look, nothing else but that. And then if you go over here, there's another spot. So, let's try.
And that's all recorded on the audio. So here's the interesting thing. So because it was a one whoop, and it was a whoop, real high, loud, and come across the water and bounced around the mountains. And so the Zoom recorder, 75 yards from the water, got activated. So you only catch like a microsecond half of the original whoop. But if you really crank it up, you can hear the echo where you hear the whole whoop.
Nice.
It's hard. It's hard. You gotta have good equipment and a good speaker. But it's real fast because that thing triggers when it hears something, and it caught just and then you hear, guys, did you hear that? Is that you? No. Yeah.
Cool.
So that was those were the main events. I think there were some other things that went on, but I can't remember.
I know Rob had a few things happen to him when he was off by himself that were pretty freaking freaky too. That he'll talk about when I get him on.
Yeah, it was and then there was one evening, and I kind of, I read some of the comments on the last episode that I did with you, and they were like, well, that guy he's pretty arrogant. He doesn't respect enough. I don't worry about too much, but I got to admit there's moments where it seems to be a little out of your control, of a sense of. So I guess what I was getting at is I didn't mind getting up the hill and over, build a little fire, be by myself, play the guitar a little bit, whatever. And then there came one evening, it was kind of a misty, foggy night, and I just got the feeling I'm not going up there tonight. I'm not climbing up that hill. I'm not going up and over on that trail. I couldn't get myself to do it. And I don't think of myself as somebody that's generally scared, but I did not want to go up there that night. And I can't tell you why. I can't even tell you that it's significant. Maybe it was just the fall. It was not a moment. It was a moment that was a little atypical for me. I normally would have just kind of not done my thing, But
Yeah, old Viking legend and Scottish legend and legends from a few other places around the world. You don't go out when it's foggy because that's when the monsters are out. They prowl around in the fog.
yeah, you know, there's a lot of myth and legend, and that you know, there's I'm not saying things are. There's a reason why they're called myths and legends, but there's a lot of reason for those myths and legends. So let me just put it that way. And there's some fact that spawned those things.
Yeah, and some of it's nebulous. You don't know why there's these old myths and legends. You know, well, you don't go do this. Well, why don't you do that? We don't remember anymore. But my great-great-grandpa told me to never do that. Oh, okay. And then there's ones that are more specific that we still have, like when I had Rich on and he was talking about incantation against the Leshy, where apparently the female Sasquatch or, Leshy, Almasti, whatever you want to call them over there in the Russian area, would actually kidnap men so often that they made an incantation to keep them at bay that the church is passing around. If you ever have one of these things try and kidnap you, here's what you recite to make it go away. Well, they don't come up with things like that unless there's a reason for it. It had to be like fairly common for them to come up with something like that.
Yeah, it's for folks that, I get it. You either haven't really looked into it, or you've looked into it enough you just don't want to believe it. There's way too, I've heard people say there's no evidence. It's like you have to be going, there's no evidence. There's no evidence, There's so many people. There's just so many people of all walks of life, and they're just not all. They're just,
No.
How many of them need to be telling the truth for it to be true?
Just one.
Just one.
And if you want to look at, here's one thing that I like to hear more people talk about what you're just mentioning, and Wes mentions this a lot on Sasquatch Chronicles. Who are you going to believe this story from? You want the story from a judge? I've had judges on my show. You want the story told to you by police officers? I've had them on the show. Would you believe the military if they told you? I've had them on the show.
Right.
Like, who are you going to believe? You got people from every imaginable degree of veracity and every walk of life have seen these beings and talk about it.
Yeah. And then another YouTuber mentions the fact that, think about this, it's somebody that you love, you respect, generally speaking. But when it comes to them saying, hey, I saw such and such, you've got no choice other than to believe them or call them a liar.
Yeah.
Well, you were drunk, you were there. Now, they're telling you flat out that they weren't. Either Uncle Joe is, telling you the truth, or he's a liar.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, all these people are not liars, And what I experienced, I'm not lying about. And I'm not mistaken about it either. I've never claimed more than what I could say happened.
Right.
I can tell you what I think it was, but I'll say I think.
Yeah.
But what happened. And like us being paced out, we're in an area where those big snaps are, where there's some X's, and we're walking out.
Where you're walking around filming Bigfoot tracks all day long.
There's to the right of us, someone quietly with us. And I've heard of this for a couple of years, of listening to hundreds of shows. And it's like, okay, stop real quick. And step. Oh, crap. You got to be kidding me. Just wait. Don't move. Nothing. Don't matter how long you wait. Nothing. Okay, let's walk. Stop. Step. I want to cuss right now. Crap.
I've had it happen to me, man. It's disconcerting. And if you do that little trick and you stop a couple times and you hear those couple extra steps, ain't no doubt about what it is, because it's not quadruped. It's bipedal. It's either human or a Bigfoot.
So now either I'm making this up and lying, or something paced us out, while we were walking out. And like I said in that last show that I did, I remember watching videos of people, and they would come across something significant. Maybe somebody got. I remember one guy. I don't even know if I haven't watched much of anything in a long time now. I just but I remember one guy got hit right in the square in the middle of a backpack with a rock. And I remember another guy. They heard some things going on. I can remember this common theme of, okay, all right, we need to go. It's time to go now. And I can remember thinking on multiple occasions, why? This is why you're out here. Why now? Things just started to happen.
Yeah.
And until that first night okay, we're finding tracks. Okay, now something's moving around us when we've got these big breaks. And I'm thinking, okay, I wouldn't mind doing this again, but I think I'm done right now.
That's enough for today anyhow. I might go home now.
And one side of my brain is saying, well, you just got started. The other side is going, no, we're good. We're good right now. I've had enough. I'm big enough swig out of this cup. We'll come back, but I'm ready to go. So yeah, I get it now. I get it.
Yeah, that's when the sane part of your brain has an argument with the curious part of your brain. And the best Bigfoot researchers, usually the curious part wins too often.
Well, it is fascinating, and I'm not a researcher. In fact, I really, to be honest with you, I'm not that interested in looking for it anymore. I think I'm moved into the zone of, I'm going to do my thing out there, and I'm going to pay attention.
Right.
But I don't know that I'm ever going to go Bigfoot. No,
you don't really need to. They'll come and find you every so often. But I mean, the fact of the matter is now that you know that they're out there, and since you know something about them, you've done some research. Like there's certain things you shouldn't do that'll tick them off really bad, and there's other things that probably won't bother them. And if they're doing this, don't do this, and that kind of stuff. Having some basic knowledge about them keeps you a little bit safer. Just like you need to know something about grizzlies if you're going to be in grizzly territory. Right. So that's a degree of comfort right there. Just having some basic knowledge about these guys and how they generally operate out in the woods is really, a big balm to your shattered nerves when you realize that they're true.
Well, it's going to be interesting as I develop those claims to do some real mining. We just put some trails in and dug some holes. I'm really hoping that there's no interference because but. We'll see. I really didn't expect anything to happen on those claims. So to have that loud whistle, that still just kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what it was too. I mean, you didn't get a visual idea on anything. There was something throwing its voice or cloaked or really short that was around there making that noise. One of the other.
Something made a really loud whistle that I absolutely thought was my buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, again, your brain doesn't go there. You don't think that, Bigfoot, or whatever. You just think, oh, that's Glenn. What? He's calling the dogs, or he's got something to show me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, the other thing that's freaky, it wasn't just some random noise. This was exactly a clone of the dog whistle that you had done earlier.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Memory's a funny thing. I know that we can. But it wasn't very long after that it happened within hours that I'm sitting there thinking, it was just like, I was trying to describe, just like when I whistled for the dogs. And then those words rolled in my head again. Yeah, it was just like.
As in exactly like.
Yeah, that's when it hit me, and it was like, okay, that's weird. That was my interesting year. Nothing else. Did I tell you about the one time? And again, this could have been earthquake or something. I'll tell you about the time I was in my truck, and I don't think I'm going to do this again either. But I drove up this one area that is kind of it goes up the mountain. There's hundreds of miles of mountains behind it, but it's it's not used.
Right.
And this was a couple of years back. It was shortly after our track incident, and I was sitting in the truck, and I'm in this pull-off. Okay, so you got the road goes up, and you got a big pull-off. So I'm kind of parked where there's a lot of room around me. I'm
pretty open.
Comfortable. Got to leave some room around you.
Right.
But it's dark, and I'll be honest with you. I don't remember if I said something out the window or if I was just thinking, if you guys are here, say something. You can say something to me. And I think I might have been paying attention to Kat's language, words for friend and stuff like that, which again, I don't think I'm going to do anymore. But so I'm in the truck, and just all of a sudden, the back of the truck, not the whole truck, not the back of the truck, just
started shimmying.
It shook like a jolt. Now, I felt jolts like that with earthquakes. We get lots of earthquakes up here. I mean, it's just so common that you lay there in bed and you go, oh yeah, one's happening.
Yeah.
It might be a gentle roll at first, but then
But how does an earthquake explain half the truck shaking and the other half not? You'd have to be straddling a fault line for that.
Well, that's the thing, because it would have been the whole truck kind of rocked.
Right.
I've had that happen, but it felt like the back of the truck kind of, and I was like, kind of cuts you off there, cuts off your, like, was that something,
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I think I was being a little stupid then. You want to do it again? And nothing happens. But within just a minute or so, another car's coming up the road. So nothing else happened. And, well, was it an earthquake? Maybe. It didn't feel like one to me. I mean, it felt similar, but didn't feel like one. It was weird. It was weird. It was just weird. And it was just weird enough that, again, it was a little unsettling, and there's just enough unsettlingness about all this that I don't really think I want to go looking for it. I think I'm going to pay attention. I think I'm going to keep an eye out around me, and now that and not be in the, that, when people talk about situational awareness, you got your white zone, your red zone, your yellow zone, your red zone, high alert and all that, and most of us walk around in white zone. I've seen cameras of people walking out their front door past a black bear on their porch and
never
notice it because they're in a white zone. They just, open the door, go out. There's a small black bear on their porch, 3 feet from them. I saw the security camera, and most of us kind of do that. I'm not saying everybody, but most of us do that. And I think my situational awareness is up a little higher, and I know what to look for, and I probably will keep an eye out in those senses. But I don't think I'm going to be planning expeditions. There's too much. I think that there's just too much weirdness, around it. Well,
as far as that goes, you live in Alaska, so you're liable to bump into them again anyway. You've been out in areas where they're around a couple times, so by now you're probably marked. So if you go out in the middle of the woods somewhere, they'll be watching you, going, "Oh, it's Lord Hackenbrook over there."
It's the white-haired.
But I want to say that most of my Sasquatch drawings, and I like to experiment because I like to draw what people see. And I've read reports of people seeing the Sasquatch look remarkably native.
Yeah.
And I believe that too. I believe, wow, yeah, some of these probably have some very distinct features that make them look. So I've tried to duplicate that. I've tried to, look for eyewitnesses with a more human aspect. Like Bobby Shorts was more human. And you'll see that in your, I sent you her drawings, which are pretty rare actually.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if those are in her book or not. But anyway, Bobby's the one I had to talk her into letting me draw her encounter. And she finally did. And unfortunately, she died right before I was done with the colored version. But the pencil drawings were dead on. She said, that's exactly what I saw, especially the full body. You'll see that. But I sent you some face pictures of just the face. And you can see what I started with, first sent her this drawing. And then, she got mad at me because her sighting, it had a round head. It didn't have a pointed head on it. And I just put a pointed head because I got to start somewhere. And I remember the day on the phone with her, she's got into this tirade about pointed heads. She's like, I'm so sick of these people thinking everything's got a pointed head, a Bigfoot. They got round heads.
Right.
Yeah, because the one she saw had a round head.
Right.
I would say not quite round like ours, more like a early human round, kind of sloped forehead,
right,
sort of thing. Anyway, I got her to, I drew it. Okay, that's better. That's it. So you'll see the finished product. It's the really nice rendering I did in pencil of the face. And then the colored version was what she saw. And it was a pretty incredible encounter. She, thing walked about, I want to say it was 15 feet, 20 feet from her.
That's
so she
pretty close.
Pretty close. So she got some real good details, even the scar on her shoulder. And the sad look. That's what got me. She said, Rob, this thing looks so sad. She said, I felt it. I felt like it was alone, like it had been abandoned. And I was like, wow, really? You got all that from like 10 seconds? She's like, yeah. I mean, she looked right into its eyes. That's what's creepy. They look right at you. And you can tell they have emotions. They have, you can understand their emotions. So I can imagine that's even creepier. So, yeah, it's all interesting stuff. But it's always fascinating drawing this thing because all the eyewitnesses, for the most part, they're similar, but they have some differences in them. And that's what I'm just trying to bring out. I'm trying to, at first back in the 90s, I was like, I'm doing it for myself, really, and for people interested, and for I don't know, maybe science is a big word, but just to throw something of quality out there to be taken seriously.
Right on. Hey, I get sciencey sometimes too, man.
Well, I grew up with all the crappy drawings, and that's all you had. You really rarely saw some of a caliber artist take on. Robert Bateman did one's fantastic. Of course, Sibylla Irwin, she's fantastic. There Alex Evans. I could name some more. So there's some wonderful artists out there now. But when I first started, there was really nothing out there, and that's what kind of drove me into. Kind of angered me. I'm sick of this crap. So I just started, really reading the eyewitness reports, and if I could reach out to the person, I would. I'd send them the drawings and get the reaction from it, and make the changes. And based on all of that experience, is every drawing I do, I try to keep some of that experience in my drawings. In other words, I'm not just making these up. The cheeks, the eyebrows, I'm trying to keep that in my drawings, everything I've learned about these things. So it's fun to make up I make up all these different scenes, and some of them, yes, are from eyewitnesses, but I'm also making up my own scenes, but I'm just trying to help the general public visualize these things, what they would look like for real. Right. And make them look real, so they can go, oh, that's not just some scribbly little, crappy drawing. That actually looks pretty cool.
And you've done things other than Bigfoot too. I mean, you've done cartoons.
Oh yeah.
Blah 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 blah. All kinds of fine arts and everything. You were also involved with Everything You Know Is Wrong, Lloyd Pye.
Lloyd Pye, yes, I did the Star Child. I did a lot of work for Lloyd on the Star Child. That was years ago, even years before he died. God bless his soul. He was a nice guy. But I did the same thing. I did some forensic drawings. He shared with me some really rare and some of the only pictures that he would share of the skull. We talked a lot on the phone. I had a lot of questions. And what I came up with were some pretty good attempts of what it may have looked like. You might see one with the hair. I drew one with the hair. I did that for fun, but I also did that to see what it would look like with hair.
Right.
Because of where they found these skulls, I think I want to say it's escaping me now, but I mean the locals were looking like a dark-skinned, dark hair. So I figured, well, if it had hair, it would probably be dark.
Right. Was this South American? I can't remember exactly where the start was.
I think it was where they found the cave where they found the skulls. Very interesting. You can read all about it. I encourage you to do your research, but it's pretty fascinating stuff. But I did work with him on that, and it was published in his
I'd
books.
like to encourage everybody to go watch Everything You Know Is Wrong by Lloyd Pye if you haven't seen it already. Must watch.
I learned a lot from him. He had some great ideas, and he did open my mind a little more to other possibilities. And he made it sound so educated. It's like, you're right. I mean, why couldn't this be possible? It's like, I don't even accept the people who say, there's no Bigfoot up there. Yeah, there's no way. We would have found him already. No, I don't. I don't think
Who's this we? You got a bleep in your pocket?
Yeah. I'm like, there's things out there we don't know of. I mean, look at the ocean, the deep ocean. There's creatures down there we don't know of. And I'm not saying they're dramatic. They might be boring little snails or whatever, but who knows? There might be some Leviathan down that we don't never seen before. And I think that there are things in the woods still we don't know.
Absolutely. Everybody thinks everything's been mapped and everything's already been looked at. And there's huge swaths of North America that people have not walked through. It's been surveyed from air and satellite, and that's it. And, at one point we thought the buffalo were extinct, and they were in the lower 48.
Well, same with the mountain
And then
gorillas.
somebody was flying out of an airport up in central Canada going west, and they had bad storm, so they had to go around and not take the usual flight path. And the people looking out the window saw a herd of bison in the forest below the tree, like 40 miles outside of a huge metro area.
Yeah, right. I believe that. Sure. No, it's true. And for those kind of people that say, no, we've discovered everything.
Yeah.
You need to come up to Alaska and drop them off right in the middle of the state and let them walk to the nearest town. And I guarantee they will spend months walking through valleys and valleys and valleys that no one's ever seen. There's just places all over the world that have probably, have not had a human foot on them for years or forever.
Unexplored. Here's something else a lot of people don't even know. There's huge parts of Australia that haven't even been explored yet.
Absolutely. Hey, there's parts of my backyard I haven't explored.
That's true.
But
never know when a moose is going to come walking out of there and fight with one of your hunting.
One of my cats. Yeah, my moose stalkers. Yeah, they're bad. Watch out for my kitty cats.
What cat breed is that exactly that hunts and kills moose for you? Because I really want some of those.
All of them. Every cut I have is true. There's some weird. I wouldn't say it's a fascination / bond. Because the moose seem okay with it. I mean, you saw the pictures I sent. The moose didn't. He's like, the cat got right up to him, sniffing and licking his foot. I'm like, you got to be kidding! But my girlfriend was up on my porch taking pictures. I got pictures. I posted some pictures on my Bigfoot art gallery, and somebody said something to the point where the moose looks fake. And I knew I was waiting for this. It's photoshopped. I'm like, no, it's not photoshopped. It's just what happens around here. I mean, sure, the neighbor next door has the same pictures of his animal with a moose. They're here. Everything's here.
Yep, animals do strange things. I mean, that's why the last field
Bigfoot's
research expedition we did this fall, it was during hunting season, and we've got mule deer coming right into camp.
Right.
Well, basically avoid the Bigfoot on the other side of the river that were coming after them. But
Right.
yeah, they came right into camp and hung out. Nobody would believe that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, I wanted to mention Dan, my buddy Dan. I hope he won't mind if I use his name. Some people he might be listening. I don't know. His name is Dan Baker. Good guy, great guy. I did a children's book with him. He wrote a children's book, Sasquatch Mountain. It's pretty cool. It's on Amazon. I did all the illustrations. It's pretty fun. But anyway, Dan had an encounter, and he approached me. He said, "Rob, could you try to draw this thing for me?" And I said, "Well, sure, Dan. Tell me what you saw." And he said, "Well, Rob, I saw it through night vision." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. What'd you see?" And he goes, "It was just big." I said, "Well, here's what we'll do." So what I did is I started out with a drawing, a pencil, of just the silhouette. What was its shape? And we did that several times back and forth till he felt, oh, I think that's what I said. That's what it looked like. Well, then I had to draw the facial features, but then turn them into a night vision filter. And then he would say, we did that back and forth. He said, "That's it. That's exactly what I saw." So then I took what he saw and I tried to make what it would have looked like in that filter. So that's an interesting kind of drawing. You can see that one on my Facebook gallery.
So when he saw this thing, he was actually looking at it with night vision then.
Yes. So you'll see my night vision version of the illustration, and then you'll see what I think it looked like that's what it would look like without the night vision. And I was just trying to use different techniques and whatnot, not to alter it, not to make it look stupid or anything, but this is what it would look like, almost like if you took my drawing, what it looks like, and put night vision on it, that, it would look like the other drawings. So,
right.
Not that I was totally accurate, but Dan loved it. He said, it's beautiful. Oh, it's beautiful. And I don't stop until they're satisfied. It's not like I'm saying, "Oh, I don't have time. This is what I'm going with."
Yeah.
No, I do it to find out. I do it because I'm curious. And I ask the questions, especially with the people that have seen the face. I want to know, was the face big? Was it like a gorilla? And use words that they understand. So they're giving me an accurate description. The best thing somebody said to me or described the nose of the Sasquatch they're sighting, and a lot of them I heard, is an aboriginal. Oh, that's not like a gorilla, like an aborigine.
Yeah.
Now I know
different.
Right. Google image aboriginal. Okay, they got big, wide noses. Nothing against the aboriginal people. It's just that's what it reminds them of.
I've also heard the nose described as a nose that looked like it had been mashed in a boxing match.
That's what I've heard as well, in my experience. And which leads me to wonder if there's just, variations. There's just different species or variations of these. Maybe their noses look pushed up, but they're not. Maybe they just got big nostrils. Yeah. Maybe some have a bigger snout. Like you were explaining to me, the type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, up to the dogman looking thing. Maybe some of them are just hideous and just have snouts. I don't know.
Well, I think even the ones that are like more or less human looking are just generally not that cute. And it sort of goes downhill from there.
Right.
One of the reasons that people have this bad reaction to them is kind of because they look so much like us, but not us at the same time. It's really jarring.
Right.
And a good example of that, Sibylla, you just mentioned her earlier. She did the artwork of Glag, who was the Bigfoot that former guest Kevin Lang spent 5 years with. So there you got a really good, okay, what does his face look like? He knows exactly what his face looked like.
Yeah.
So she worked with him and got a really good image of it. And he, once again, has that sort of a nose. It's like the aboriginal or the sort of a mush down, boxing match type nose.
Like a smash nose, yes.
Right. Now, the other ones you get over here in the Pacific Northwest, and I've actually, the one that I saw here during the day in Montana that was pretending to be a stump, he had the hawk nose like the natives do, straight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've heard that too. And I've done one illustration. Actually, I did it in Bobby's, it was for Bobby's book. And it was for the chapter of the First Nations stories. But I specifically, you'll see that illustration, it's a pencil, It's pretty cool. It shows a Sasquatch and then a native person below it, with the feathers and whatnot. It's kind of a cool drawing. But I just pay attention to the face on that particular Sasquatch. That I drew from all the stories that I've heard where they look more Native American and kind of human. Much like Harvey Pratt, David Paulides' a forensic artist, when he removed the fur from each of his drawings and the Bigfoot from the Bigfoot drawings, and it looked remarkably native. And I found that just absolutely fascinating. And I kind of agreed with it. I kind of figured that was true already, just from my experience of drawing them. But
and again, this points to the the DNA evidence that Dr. Ketchum put together that points toward hybridization with humans. If they were inbreeding with the local natives, stealing women, whatever, they would end up kind of looking like that. So it actually makes total sense.
Right. Absolutely. It's a challenge. I mean, I enjoy listening to the stories more than anything. That's what really got me into it when I was a kid, even. My first magazine, one of my first magazines was Argosy. It was an issue that showed, and I actually just recently bought it. It shows a Sasquatch swinging a log against a bear, and that always stuck with me. So when I was approached by Bobby, she has a couple bear stories, and I thought that was interesting because I've never heard one before. I said, "Well, Bobby, I read this Argosy magazine years ago, and it showed a bear and a Bigfoot fighting. Why don't I draw a Bigfoot fighting with a bear?" And she thought it was brilliant. So that's what I did for her book cover. I think you'll see it if you've looked at it. You'll see the cover.
You did a bunch of Bigfoot versus local indigenous bad news animals.
Oh, I love
Bigfoot versus bear, Bigfoot versus
I love
moose,
doing that.
Bigfoot versus mountain lion,
Yeah.
Bigfoot eating convenient walrus. How about that one?
Yes. The walrus. Isn't that something? I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
But it was in.
Well, it doesn't look like Paul McCartney, but it is the walrus. Cuckoo.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, cuckoo, cuckoo. But I sent you the actual article not article, but it was the article. It shows
newspaper. Yeah.
Now look at that picture and tell me that's a Bigfoot with a log. That's what the person's claiming. To me, it looks like a guy walking along the beach, and he's got oars. And that's his Zodiac sitting there on the beach. That's all that is. There claims to be a video of that. I've never seen it, but it's a fascinating story because the story is up near, where was this? I can't remember where it was up north, where the walruses are. Well, anyway, a native person was standing there and happened to have a video camera and watched a Sasquatch walk over to the carcass of a dead walrus and use a giant, piece of driftwood, which is a big log basically, and use that to roll this walrus over. And he fed on it. And so that was in the paper. Now this paper shows they don't hesitate. They had another interesting encounter with a native family picking blueberries. Saw a family. So this newspaper is not shy to print stories from local. These are all locals, natives, by the way. A very rural town in the bush. So I just thought it was interesting. And that's why I drew that. And that's pretty much all artistic license there. But I had fun with it. Using the real walrus and, crows and things that would really be there. So.
Wouldn't surprise me. I heard some legends from up there that they have a warning against eating whale carcasses washed up on shore. And the reasoning not being what you would expect, but that it could actually be a dead giant. And apparently they're toxic if you eat anything from them. So,
wow.
Yeah, don't eat a giant, don't eat a dead whale washed up on shore if you ain't exactly sure about what it is.
I can recommend from experience, don't ever eat blubber. Don't ever eat whale blubber. And whatever you do, don't ever eat seal jerky. You'll die. It's the worst thing you've ever tasted. And no offense to the natives. I'm sure if I ate it for a long time, I'd acquire a taste. But I had a friend who, when we were younger, he had a full native mother, and we all brought a buffet to this party. He brought whale blubber, and it was beautiful. It was these little cubes of white with one like dark skin on one side. And, it was terrible. You chew on this stuff, it was like eating rubber that tasted like fish.
Well, that's what
And-
I thought it was. Just Eskimo gum.
Well, there's different variations, I guess, but this is what we had.
Eskimo
Anyway,
chewing gum.
my
Yeah.
buddy had like a I don't know, like a 200-pound Rottweiler, and he says he takes a bite of it. He says, "This is terrible." He looks over at it. He says, "Dog," and the dog looks. He throws it, and the dog, catches it, chews it. He takes and he hacked the thing up. How many 200-pound Rottweilers hack anything up? And, man, that dog did not want anything to do with that whale blubber. So
That had to be pretty bad.
That's bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's fun. It's fun living up here. I love them.
Eskimos call it muck tuck.
Sure. I grew up with the Tlinkets and in Southeast Alaska. In my classes and whatnot. It was no big deal. Which leads me to my little people story. You've probably heard of the little people up here.
Oh yeah, you're
Yeah, I've got a great one. I was just a kid in the 70s down at my friend Mark. He was my little buddy. He was about 2 years older than me, but I'd go down to his house and hang out on Fritz Cove Road. And Glenn, they were commercial fishermen, and he was in the living room working on something, and Mark and I were there talking about monsters or something. And I think somehow we got on the subject of Bigfoot, or I mentioned it or something. And then Glenn is his name, Glenn Milkey, great guy. He says, "Oh, are you guys talking about the little people?" And we go, "What?" And we're just, I'm probably 12 years old, 13 maybe. What? What do you mean little people? I've never heard of what? So he starts explaining to us about these little people that live in these coves. And he named this cove specifically. I can't remember what it was. But it was a
Rip
specific
Van Winkle land.
Yeah, that's what you might as well be, little people land. But these things to him, he explained us as they're like little devils, little demons that would harass the fishermen. They would harass the hunters, and so hunters, fishermen would not go into these coves.
Now, what you're talking about, you're not referencing the good little people that look like miniature Eskimos. You're talking about those little furry monsters.
Oh, we're
they're
talking
sort of
about,
like the
little
Alaskan version of the albatwitch.
Yeah. So that's what I understood. So, they whistle. They try to get you to come further in the forest. They try to get you to get lost. I don't know if they eat you, but they can be scary. But what blew me away was that Glenn, Mr. Milky, was serious about this. And he told us this whole story and knew all about these little people. And anyway, that's the first time. It was about 76, 77. I heard about it for the first time from a fisherman in Southeast Alaska.
Judging by one of the reports I heard up there of a missing child and the eyewitness saying what it was that ran off with a kid matches that description.
Well, and I was leading up to my my story is that I wrote a couple articles for Cryptid Culture magazine. One which was just about Alaskan monsters, and I decided to do an illustration of the little people, which I've never done before. And so I decided to do it as it was first told to me, and what my imagination thought of them then. What I thought in my mind as Glenn was telling me about this. So that's what that drawing shows. It's kind of funny, actually, but
I think it's pretty cool. The other one that
fun.
you sent me with that little group was your rendition of the Kushtaka, which I think is like the coolest one I've ever seen.
I know I had to. There's tons of cool. Even my father, who's a surveyor, he's been up here since the early '60s. Never seen one. Thinks it's BS. But he does know about the Kushtaka, so it's very known, legend up here. But I've never seen a kick-ass Kushtaka drawing. So for this article for Cryptid Culture, I decided to draw one and just make it strictly like a kick-ass, like an otter man,
Yeah, well, that's what they're supposed to be.
That's what they're supposed to be.
Shapeshifters. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You never know. I think personally they're Sasquatch, but who knows? Who knows? Keep an open mind. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it could be. Well, again, you have to look at what the indigenous tribes say about them. And if the tribe's got a legend about the Otterman and a legend about Bigfoot, you can be reasonably certain that they're not talking about the same critter.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, and that's again the natives. I love talking to any native that can feed me information on this. I'll listen to them. I love them. I'll respect them and their words about it more just as much as an eyewitness, a credible eyewitness. But
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some of these guys have tribal legends and history on these things. It goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years. You'd be idiotic to not know what happened.
We have a really nice touristy place here called the Alaska Heritage Center. It's pretty nice, pretty modern. They just built it. I've been meaning to go in there and ask someone who could tell me and verify what I've heard about the backside of Willow and that valley, the quote, the Valley of the Wild Man. I want to know exactly what that word is, and if possible, talk to an elder about why. I want to hear why, and I want to draw, if I can, and illustrate a little story about it. Yeah, write a book. There you go.
Well, it's kind of interesting that the interaction between the native tribes and Bigfoot is sort of like all over the board. And one more interesting examples that I had foisted upon me recently. I was talking to a friend that lives over on the West Coast, and they've got an elderly gentleman that they take care of occasionally. He's like friends with one of the people they take care of. And he's a member of one of the Indian tribes in Northern California. Right. And his great-grandfather was the chief of the tribe, and at the time he was the chief, they had a war with the local Bigfoot going on.
Right.
Apparently, a couple of them had gone up too far into the mountains where these things were and found out there was lots of good big game up there, started hunting up there and made them mad. And then these things started like throwing whole trees at the natives. They waited until 2 or 3 braves were together so they could squish multiples all at once.
Oh, sure.
And the natives finally had to develop their own there was an arms race, and they developed their own version of the longbow that they could put an arrow through, quote unquote, a redwood tree with. Be that as it may, that might be a little bit of an exaggeration.
Sure.
But the point being that they could put an arrow through a Bigfoot. So at that point, apparently the Bigfoot decided to have a truce with them and said, you stay down in the valleys and we'll stay up in the mountains and we won't mix and everything will be fine. So now this has been going on for like 3 or 4 generations now. And as much as he's interested in them, and they got all kinds of tribal legends and stuff on them, they literally can't research them because they made a truce with them to not go in their area.
Right. Well, then they should stick to it.
Yeah, I agree.
If these things are real, don't mess with them. That's all I say. Yeah. Stay safe. Yep.
But it's kind of funny, though, because he's really interested in him. He knows all the legends and stuff. And, if it was okay to do, he'd probably be one of those people that would have been up there a long time ago checking it out. But no, not allowed. Bigfoot and that tribe made a truce. Don't interact. Stay away from each other.
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting. And, like I said, it doesn't take long, especially in the 90s when we were first, the internet was new and it was exciting. There's very limited information. You really had to spend quite a bit of time to even find out how they eat or I've heard stories myself. I've heard them how they, a Sasquatch will take leaves from a tree, stick them all in their mouth and pull the branch out, keeping the leaves in its mouth, like great apes
skin all the leaves off. Yep.
I've heard a story locally here from 2 eyewitness gold miners, again from Willow, this seemingly hot spot. Watched one. They claim they watched 2 for 20 minutes doing this, feeding. Kind of reminded me of maybe mountain gorillas. They just sat there, and they were just feeding themselves these leaves, just like corn on the cob, peeling them off the twigs. But it's fascinating to me. I think we can't discount it because you have all these eyewitnesses.
Have you noticed any difference between the reports of the coastal Bigfoot and the inland ones?
I have heard.
I have.
Only I've heard they're bigger. I've heard there's giants kind of up by the Iliamna or
Iliamna, that valley on the other side from supposed to be where
I've read some stories from there. Not just the Iliamna monster. That's a separate thing. Yeah, but we're talking about
giants.
I've read stories where a guy referred to them as Yetis. There's Yetis that live back there. And anyway, that's maybe just what he referred to them as, but I thought that was kind of
live in the Himalayas. He just didn't have the local name for them.
Well, he claimed that, it was part of the land bridge that went to Russia. So, and then, maybe we have some Yetis around here. Or, that species of Sasquatch that lives in colder environments. Who knows?
Yetis get 15 or 20 feet tall because that's the description of those guys. They're not Bigfoot sized.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
they have tusks, too. That's the other thing. That's the dead giveaway. That's a mountain troll.
Mountain troll? Oh, my God. Well, maybe I should draw a mountain troll then.
Yeah.
I'll try that.
Yeah, go look at episode 54, The Troll. You can see an actual picture one taken over in Nova Scotia.
Hey, did you ever do a show on the Justin Spedja thing?
No, but we got that interesting picture to show. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, only because I have never, and I want a disclaimer to my, should I say fans? People that know of me, don't hate me for this, please, because I'm an illustrator. I've actually drawn worse things than this for real, for police. But this was an interview I heard listening to. I don't know who it was, but they interviewed Justin and they interviewed his partner, which is rare. You don't see that often. Pretty lengthy interviews. And anyway, while I was listening to Justin, he went into great detail of the baby that he supposedly shot. Of course, I start drawing it. And by the end of the show, I had kind of this drawing. The nose particularly, he gave pretty good detail in this interview about the nose, which he said was like a bulldog, a pug, like it wasn't developed. And anyway, so I drew this thing. I colored it. It's pretty horrible. It's pretty graphic, is why I've never showed it to anyone. But I did send it to Justin, and I talked to him, and I said, hey, I drew this. Is it close to what you saw? I listened to your interview. What do you think? And he wrote me back, and he said, Rob, you did a fantastic job. And I believe it was the head. He said if the head was just bigger, it would look spot on. And I thought, okay. Oh, that's pretty cool. But I left it alone. I didn't make the head bigger. It is what it is. So it is graphic. And, I don't want to apologize for it, but I apologize for it. But it had to be done. I figured I wanted something to look at. And I want him to look at it and say that was close. And if it's close, then there is a pretty accurate drawing. Now, I've seen others done. I think, was it Alex Evans did one with him too, which to me it looks more chimpanzee. But mine looks just more like a classic young Squatch, like you would kind of think they'd look like. But it was based on what he described. That's what he described. That's what I saw anyway. And he said it was real close. Anyway, I just want to put that out there. It's a pretty...
well, we don't want to end on a sour note of the picture of dead Squatchlets.
No. Let's look at... Well, how about
And while you guys are looking at Bigfoot cartoons, was there any way that people can get a hold of you and check out your artwork? You're on Facebook?
Sure.
Where at?
I have the Bigfoot Art Gallery on Facebook. You can look me up there. That's probably my best. That's where I upload all of my latest artwork especially for Bigfoot. But you'll see photographs and things from Alaska that are interesting too. And I try to keep it around, that kind of adventure outdoors, Bigfoot kind of stuff. And then I have a website. I have www.visualmediastudios.com. And that's an older website of mine, but it has a lot of my other art you can see that's non-Bigfoot, because I do a lot of non-Bigfoot illustrations and paintings. I love portraits. I love homes. I love, mountains, scenic, wildlife. I do all kinds of illustration that, a lot of people may not know. Right. The Sasquatch stuff is just I choose to do in my own time. But I try to think that I put that kind of realism and effort into that to help everyone visualize this in a realistic way and maybe help it be more real to people instead of just, crappy drawings and, blurry pictures. So,
well, I think it really does a great job of doing that. And I personally have used your artwork in quite a few of my shows where somebody is talking about some incident and they're just, it looks like, and you and one or two other people are the go-tos for me. I go look and go, oh wait, Rob did a drawing of this, or there's a Bigfoot family running through a field down a hill.
Yes,
Okay, I can use that picture or something. And it just gives the people something to visualize, and especially because the artwork is so good quality and you're so damn close to having the things, pretty much exactly what they look like. It's really good from that aspect because it gives people a really kind of a clearer picture of what exactly we're talking about here. This isn't the guy from the Jack Link's beef jerky commercial with a costume on. Some of these suckers are like the size of a freaking elephant.
Right. Woo, yeah, I'd like to see one. Oh my God. Like I said, in a neighbor's tank.
So them don't hug the Wookiee. Don't tick them off.
Right, don't at all. Be nice to them. Give them coffee. They like coffee.
Oh, yeah. Hyper Sasquatch. That's what we want. At least probably better than giving them whiskey anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, that is, yes, my point exactly.
Everyone, safety first, last, and always. Pay it forward. Don't be mean to people if you don't have to be. Don't flip off the mountain giant. Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't punt the puck, would you? And for God's sake, whatever you do not hug the Wookiee.